All right, good evening. Can everyone hear me okay? All right. So I'm Kristin Ferrier, and I've been in the group for a little while. I was co-founder of the group with Rob Sullivan. We founded the group in 2009. Some background on me, I got 15 years experience in IT, both software development and BI development here in Tulsa, Oklahoma City. And if you want to catch up with me on social media, reach out to me on SQL Energy, or you can find me on Slack at Techlahoma's Slack channel as EnergyDev, or on GitHub as EnergyDev. And to follow up for the question that you had for SQL Fiddle and some examples, some of the scripts that I have, I've actually made a SQL Fiddle version to where you can actually create a schema using that version of the script and then also run the queries that I'm going to show here. So this will be SQL Fiddle friendly. All right, so basically this talk is it's an intermediate T-SQL presentation, but I thought T-SQL treats sounded a lot cooler. So it's called T-SQL treats. And if John would like to hand me that bag of candy behind him that I forgot to bring up here. We have some real chocolate treats available, so if anyone has good questions, I've got 7 pieces of chocolate available. I'm going to put them over here. So this talk, when I timed it without questions, it was about 15 minutes, but I have a bunch of queries, so this is really your guys' time, so we'll get through as much as we can, and if you guys have questions throughout, that's totally fine. We'll get through as much as we can. So I first wanted to get a feel for the SQL experience level of the group. So is there anyone that's never done anything with SQL in any environment ever? Okay, great. So beginner, you've seen a select statement, but pretty new. Okay, great. So he's a great place to get started, but some of my scripts you can run in SQL Fiddle. Who would consider themselves like intermediate? A couple of people. Advanced. I guess beginners. Okay, we got a bunch of beginners. Okay, so there should be something here for everyone, and I do apologize. I've got a little bit of allergies going on, so I might step aside for a second. So we're going to cover basically 3 topics. We've got intersect and accept. That's the lollipop. We've got case within a select statement. That's kind of the ice cream cone. And then window functions, which you can recognize with an over and a partition by. That's the 3-layer wedding cake or anniversary cake. You could literally have an hour presentation just on all of the sorts of different kinds of windowing functions that you could have. So it's going to be just a very brief intro into windowing functions. And then next.
How many people have done any of those in the last week? How many people have done all of those in the last week?
Some. All right, awesome. Awesome. So we're going to go to switch to live demo, which is going to be most of the session. Nope. It's up on my screen.
Is it resolution?
I don't know. I'm going to pull out and push back in.
Yeah. No single link is not getting anything, so how do you push it on?
Well, fortunately, I don't have to bounce back and forth between these too much. So can everyone see the queries, or should I make the queries bigger? Because that's super easy to make bigger. And I'll see them. The results set, they're kind of set at that size. I can't really make them bigger, unfortunately. Can you see the scripts, though, up top? Okay. I didn't quite catch that answer. Just not the results, unfortunately. Yeah, come on up. Come on up. Come on up. Next time I'll have Zoom it. All right, so the first thing I want to do is just quickly show you the 2 tables that we have. They've already been created, and they've already had data inserted into them. Now, I'm running on SQL Server 2016. Pretty much any of this is probably going to work from 2005 or later. I did want to quickly cover, for those that aren't familiar, the difference between TSQL and SQL. So SQL is technically ANSI SQL is basically a specification, and you have this core SQL functionality that you're going to see in Oracle, you're going to see it in SQL Server, you're going to see it in MySQL, you're going to see it in Postgres, your select statements, your froms, your group bys, your join statements, those are going to be available everywhere. Then a lot of providers such as SQL Server or Oracle, they add on additional functionality. In the case of Oracle, that would be PLSQL, which is Oracle's add-ons, and the core SQL functionality that they provide. With Microsoft SQL Server, it's called TSQL. So TSQL is technically Microsoft's add-ons plus the core SQL functionality. Some of what we're seeing here is available in other places, and some of it is TSQL specific. And I would have to try it out in different places to know exactly where it's at. But we have a store table. And if you're not familiar with top, that is something available in TSQL. You can say, basically, I want to see the top 100 results, top 1,000 results. It's just basically a store table with store ID, store number, city, state, region. Got one other table that you can join it to. And it's just basically a monthly sales ID, store ID, sales year, sale month, and total sales. And these slides are going to be made available online later, and these scripts, I've got a link that I will show you to where you can get the SQL Server installation version of the scripts or the SQL fiddle-friendly version of the scripts. And they are out on GitHub, but you don't need to know how to use Git to get them. You can just go to the website and copy-paste the SQL scripts. So all of these comments, all of these queries are going to be available out there. So Intersect, basically what it allows you to do, used to having a mouse and a mouse pad, is basically allows you to get the results set from the top, the results set from the bottom, the intersection of those two, and a distinct result set of those. You can have one column, you can have multiple columns, but they need to have compatible data types across them. So in this case, we're just basically getting a distinct list of all stores that have data in the monthly sales table. You might think that's not a realistic query, but at a previous employer, we had a query just like this, where we had a store table of, say, 600 stores, and we had maybe 150 million rows in a kind of a rolled up table that was being used by an analysis services cube, but we didn't have data for all the stores, but we only wanted to show in the list of stores the ones that we had data for. So there was a query just like this that was used. Now, there are a couple other ways that you could write a query like this. Whichever one performs better, it just depends. I heard that in this case, this one actually performed quite a bit better. It's just select store ID from store, intersect with the ones that are in monthly sales. Basically, we've got 25 store IDs that came back. There's actually 27 stores. Then you've got except, which is the exact opposite. So you've got your top list, excluding what's in the bottom list, and then you've got a distinct list. So in this case, we're going to have 2 come back. Store 26 and 27. Now, I do know that Oracle has similar functionality. It's actually intersect and minus instead of intersect and except. So there are other providers that have it. Are there any questions on intersect and except? All right, that was the lollipop. All right, so we've got 3 different case statements within a select. So basically, if you're familiar with case statements in coding, it's basically or a switch statement in C#. It's basically the core concept of a case. But you can do that within a SQL statement. So first here, I'll just show you the results set, which is basically we're looking at, for each row in monthly sales, what's the name of the actual season? Which you can see here, it says winter for the first 3 rows. So the way that we're doing that is we're basically doing a select star from monthly sales, and then in our last column called season, we're saying case when sale month in 1, 2, 3, then winter, 4, 5, 6 in summer, 7, 8, 9, actually 7, 8, 9 is summer, and then else fall. And get up here where you can see the results set better. Any questions on that case statement? All right. The next one, we're actually going to look at all of the winter and spring sales by store. So basically, we're going to look at store ID, and then we're actually going to do some aggregation. So we're going to select for each store for monthly sales, we're going to group by store ID. And then we're going to sum case when sale month in 1, 2, 3, then total sales 0. Sum case when sale month in 4, 5, 6, total sales otherwise 0. If you use a null, then you're summing a null. And so oftentimes when you do things like summing nulls, you might actually get a result set of null. Definitely if you're summing all nulls, you're going to end up with null, which is why we're using 0 here instead of null. And I'm going to actually open up magnifier. Maybe. We'll see if it fusses. It's not working on my machine screen either. I was hoping to show it to you guys magnified. That's interesting that it doesn't work. There we go. You guys see the results now?
Yes. Absolutely.
All right, awesome. Unfortunately, getting out of magnifier can be interestingly fun as well. Nope, escape didn't actually work. So we're going to close it in that case. So the next case example that we have is actually one where there's a nuance of it that I actually learned from John just a couple weeks ago. And that's one of the things with something like SQL, you can learn more and more all the time. So you can actually do a count within a case statement. But one thing that's interesting here is, can anyone see what's a little bit other than we're not aggregating, what's different about this case statement from the others? Kind of main structure-wise. John knows the answer, so he can't answer. So if we look at the ones above, select sum case when sale month in 1, 2, 3, then total sales else 0. Count case when sales month in 1, 2, 3, then count me. Anyone notice what's not in this query? Who said that? The else? All right. Let's get some candy to Kimberly. Bill's gonna hand deliver it to Kimberly. Thanks, Kimberly. So I always thought that you needed an else, but you didn't. So there were cases where I would count where I would basically sum 1 else 0. So basically what this one's doing right here is it's basically counting if you have results that are coming back here. Now you would typically probably say 1 instead of count me, but the reason I'm actually saying count me here is to emphasize that we're counting anything that has a result come back in the case. So it says count case when sales month in 1, 2, 3, then count me. If you anything other than null. Yes, basically anything other than null is going to get counted, basically. And that result set is here. We'll magnify it as well.
So counting is built in as like an understood, like this is a
Yes. Yes.
Anything that's not null will figure the question.
You could put any string there because it's
Oh,
counting
you can put any string.
a thing, so it counts it. And then if it matches condition next time, then it counts that one.
So it's not matching that string, it's like a list of strings to go ahead and do something on it based on the string.
If the condition of the case is met.
So the conversation that was going outside the mic was basically asking, is like count me something that's built in. Basically count is counting anything when the result set is not null from the case that's coming back. And can you guys see the result set now? Star ID, winter months open, spring months open. Okay. Basically each time I'm going to have to close it. But I'd rather you guys be able to see. That's super fun. Escape. Oh, that's awesome. It doesn't want to close. Close window. Awesome. Okay, so we're running out of time. So we've got three windowing statements, so I'm just going to show you the third one. And this is actually the first time I used a windowing function was actually something like this. So this is basically, if you've got a windowing function, you're going to typically see an over and a partition by. So what this query is basically doing is it's going to provide us for every region by store within that region, how is it ranking for current year sales, and how is it ranking for prior year sales compared to everyone else. And I'll show you that in the query, and then I'll show you the results set so that I can magnifier it. So basically, the core information to get out of this functionality is that we are ranking over partition by region. So partition by, basically it's saying that I want to rank within a region. So West region, Midwest region, East Coast, West Coast, I want to rank within each of those. If you wanted to rank all stores against each other, you wouldn't have a partition by, and that's actually the first example in the queries that'll be available online. The next thing is, what are you ranking by? So we're ranking by 2017 sales, descending because we want the most sales to have the higher rank. Then for prior year sales, we're partitioning by region, and we're ordering by 2016 sales. Questions on the over partition by syntax? Okay, we'll go ahead and do the results set. And one more time in magnifier. So you can see here we've got region, state, city, store number, sale year, and then you can see the current year by region. We've got 1, 2, 3, and then it's starting over again by region. And then you can see the prior year rank by region is different than the actual current year rank. So you've got 2, 3, 1, 1, because that region only has 1, and then it's starting over again. And that is how over by partition works. And then I actually need to take you back to follow up. Oh, now it decides to show. Lost it. Awesome. Went all the way back to the beginning. There we go. Okay. So if you'd like to follow up on this, you can go to my GitHub account and go to Energy Dev T-SQL treats. And if you want to take a picture on this, you can get the link also. I will be tweeting out the link to these slides later on tonight. And so basically out on GitHub, I've got basically 2 folders. One folder, it says SQL Fiddle Friendly. Basically, that's going to be one script that you're going to put on the left-hand pane. And then the other script's going to be the queries that you can run on the right-hand pane. The data is a little bit different from what you saw here if you use the SQL Fiddle Friendly version, because my insert statements and the create table statements together are about 16,000 characters, and so I had to cut out about 80% of the inserts. So the create tables will be the same, there'll be less data. So if you're going with SQL Fiddle and then you look at my slides online where I have some results screenshots, you're gonna see some different result sets than my screenshots because of that. Or you can use the non-SQL Fiddle friendly version and run it against an instance of SQL Server directly as well. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter at SQL Energy, or Slack, Techlahoma Slack, Energy Dev. I am pretty active on the Techlahoma community, so feel free to direct message me if you have any questions as well. And I think that's it. Any questions?